Hey guys, tonight we're staying up way past bedtime because the sky just coughed up something that should have stayed buried in the dark between galaxies. The air in here tastes metallic, like I've been licking the inside of a telescope lens, and the only light is the pale green glow of my monitor reflecting off dust motes that drift like slow, lazy planets. You probably won't make it to the end of this one. Most nights I barely do. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious who else is awake when the stars start talking. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's descent together. I run a private observatory on the edge of the Atacama, elevation 5,050 meters, where the air is so thin it feels like breathing glass. The dome's aluminum ribs creak in the wind, a low metallic sigh that syncs with my pulse when I'm tired. Last Tuesday, 2:17 local, the 24-inch reflector locked onto a target I'd been chasing for months. 2 mass J 17554042 plus 6551277, the oldest known star in the Milky Way. 14 billion years, give or take a cosmic hiccup. It's a red dwarf, dim as a dying ember, but spectroscopically pristine, iron-poor, helium-rich, a relic from when the universe still smelled of hydrogen and nothing else. I was logging photometry when the photometer flatlined. Not noise, absence. A perfect null in the flux curve, 1 millisecond wide, then another, then a third. My first thought was cosmic ray strike, but the pattern repeated every 7.4 seconds. I froze, coffee cooling in my hand, and watched the screen paint dots and dashes across the light curve like a child learning to write. Morse Code, from a star that predates Earth by 10 billion years. Curiosity hit first, sharp as altitude sickness. I scribbled the sequence on the back of a star chart. / straight face. /dash. The classic distress call, but the second word wasn't come. It was coordinates. Right ascension 17 hours, 55 minutes, and 40.04 seconds. Declination plus 65 degrees, 51 minutes, 27.7 seconds. I punched them into the finder. The crosshairs landed on my own dome. The star was blinking at me from 12,000 light years away, and the message pointed to the exact patch of desert I was standing on. The room tilted. Not metaphor. The Coriolis effect from my sudden spin in the chair. I laughed, a dry bark that echoed off the concrete walls, then stopped because the laugh sounded borrowed. Outside, the Milky Way arched overhead like a scar across black skin, and every photon from that ancient star had traveled 14 billion years to arrive tonight, on schedule. I checked the log. The blinks began at 2 hours 17 minutes and 33.421 seconds, the precise moment I'd pressed record. I should have shut the dome, unplugged the scope, gone to bed. Instead, I opened the raw data in Python and filtered for periodicity. The signal rode a carrier wave at 1,420 megahertz, the hydrogen line, the frequency every SETI array on Earth listens to. Someone, something, was using the universe's own heartbeat to talk. The air tasted colder now, thin enough to cut lungs. I pulled on a second jacket and felt the static crawl across my scalp. The mythic part slithered in while I waited for the next pulse. In Babylonian star catalogs, red dwarfs were ghost lamps, remnants of gods who failed to ignite. The Sumerians claimed the oldest star was Ninkalim, mongoose-shaped, guardian of thresholds. When it blinked, reality thinned. I told myself that was folklore, but the hairs on my arms rose like iron filings near a magnet. The next blink came, brighter, and the photometer spiked into saturation. For one frame, the star outshone every other object in the field. I don't think the universe ever meant for us to know its phone number. The sequence repeated, slower now, as if the sender noticed I was listening. I recorded 30 minutes, then an hour. The desert outside was silent except for the soft click of the dome motor tracking the star across the meridian. My reflection in the control room window looked pale, eyes ringed black, mouth open like I had forgotten how to close it. The fan hummed its lullaby, but underneath I heard another rhythm, a subaudible thump that synced with the blinks. My own heart, I thought. Then I counted. The interval was 0.8 seconds. My resting pulse is 0.77. Close, but not mine. By 4 o'clock the sky paled toward nautical twilight, and the stars slipped behind the ridge. I saved the dataset as oldest_star_Morse.fits and stared at the file name until the letters blurred. The coordinates still pointed here. I stepped outside. The gravel crunched under my boots. Each footstep a small earthquake. The wind carried the smell of frost and distant lightning. Overhead, the star was gone, but I felt its gaze linger, a pressure behind my eyes like the onset of migraine. Inside again, I replayed the audio feed. The hydrogen line carried a faint harmonic, almost musical, 3 notes descending. I looped it. The notes matched the opening motif of an old nursery rhyme my mother sang. Something about stars falling into wells. I hadn't thought of that tune in 20 years. The hair on my neck prickled again. Coincidence, sure. Except the star was older than language. Dawn found me still at the console, eyes grainy, fingers numb. The final pulse arrived at 5 hours, 55 minutes, and 55 seconds. A single long dash that held for 9 seconds, then silence. The photometer flatlined for good. I exported the full translation. SLS/COME/HERE/1755 40.0 4 plus 65 50 127.7/REPAT. My own coordinates, repeated like an echo testing the shape of a canyon. I shut everything down, but the silence that followed was worse. It had texture, a velvet weight that pressed against my eardrums. I opened the dome anyway, let the morning spill in. The sky was the color of bleached bone. Somewhere behind the horizon, 14 billion years away, the oldest star in the galaxy had just introduced itself, and it knew my address. The coordinates sat on my screen like a dare. I brewed coffee thick enough to float a wrench and stared at them until the numbers rearranged themselves into constellations I didn't recognize. The dome's air tasted of burnt wiring now. The cooling fans had been running all night, and the heat from the electronics pooled under the ceiling like a second sky. I opened the raw fits file again, zoomed to the pixel level, and watched the star's light curve pulse in slow motion. Each blink was a perfect square wave, edges sharp as obsidian. No natural process does that. Stellar flares smear, pulsars wobble, even gamma-ray bursts have tails. This was engineered. Curiosity returned, colder this time, the kind that makes your teeth ache. I fed the sequence into an old Morse decoder I'd written for fun during grad school. It spat out the same message, but with a header I'd missed, a 3-bit prefix, 101, repeating every cycle. Binary for the number 5. Then the SOS, the coordinates, the repeat command. I cross-checked the ephemeris. The star's proper motion is 0.8 milliarcseconds per year. In 14 billion years, it has barely crawled across the sky. Yet the coordinates it sent were current, not where it had been when the light left. Someone, something, was updating the message in real time. I needed more data. I slewed the telescope to a radio dish I keep bolted to the dome's exterior, a 3-meter parabolic relic from a defunct Chilean survey. Tuned it to 1,420 megahertz and opened the spectrum analyzer. The hydrogen line glowed like a neon vein, and riding its crest was the same square wave carrier. I recorded an hour of waterfall display, vertical stripes of signal marching downward, precise as piano keys. When I sonified it, the notes were there again, the nursery rhyme fragment, but stretched across octaves no human throat could reach. The temperature in the control room dropped 3 degrees. The thermostat clicked uselessly. Fear arrived on schedule, pooling in my gut like melted lead. I stepped outside to clear my head. The desert at noon is a furnace, but the wind off the Andes carried a bite that didn't belong. I looked up. The sun was a white coin, but the sky around it had a bruise-colored ring, a halo I'd never seen at this altitude. I blamed fatigue, then checked the weather station. Pressure steady, humidity 0, seeing excellent. The ring was real. I took a photo with my phone. The sensor rendered it as a perfect circle 1.2 degrees wide, centered on the zenith. My observatory's coordinates projected onto the dome of the sky. Back inside, I ran the numbers. The ring's angular diameter matched the star's parallax if the star were suddenly 12,000 light-years closer. Impossible. I laughed again, and this time the sound scraped my throat raw. The radio dish whined, unprompted, and spat out a new sequence. Shorter, just the coordinates and a single word in Morse, SE. I felt the word land behind my eyes like a finger-tapping glass. The mythic thread tightened. In the Popol Vuh, the Maya spoke of mirror stars, portals that showed you what you would become if you looked too long. The observer and the observed trade places. The reflection steps out. I told myself that was poetry, but the spectrogram on my screen was folding in on itself, the waterfall display curling into a Mobius strip of light. I unplugged the dish. The curl persisted in the cached image, rotating slowly, as if the data had learned to breathe. I don't think the universe ever meant for us to answer the phone. I needed ground truth. I hiked to the ridge above the observatory, boots crunching on salt crystals that glittered like mica. From the crest, I could see the dome, a white blister on the tawny skin of the desert. My phone had no signal, but the GPS locked instantly, spitting out the exact coordinates the star had sent. I zoomed the map. The pin dropped on the telescope's meridian marker, accurate to within a meter. I took a screenshot, then another when the pin twitched, sliding 3 centimeters south. The shift matched the dome's thermal expansion as the afternoon sun heated the aluminum. The star was tracking my building's heartbeat. By dusk, I was back at the console, palms sweating despite the chill. I patched the radio into the optical scope's guiding system, a hack that should have bricked both instruments. Instead, the crosshairs recentered themselves on the star without my input. The photometer woke up, blinked once, and displayed a new light curve, my own EKG from the fitness tracker on my wrist, overlaid in perfect synchrony. I ripped the tracker off. The curve continued, lagging by 0.3 seconds, the exact light travel time from the dome to the ridge and back if you bounced a laser off the atmosphere. Night fell hard. The sky went indigo, then black, and the star rose above the horizon like a coal dragged across velvet. I watched it through the finder scope. It was brighter now, magnitude 14.2, up from 17.8 in the catalogs. Red dwarfs don't do that. I checked the ephemeris again. No supernova, no microlensing event, no companion star. Just the oldest light in the galaxy, burning hotter because it wanted my attention. The final hour of the section belonged to awe. I opened the dome fully, let the desert night pour in. The wind carried the smell of ozone and something sweeter, like bruised fruit. The star hung overhead, pulsing in Morse again, but the message had changed. It was my name, spelled phonetically, letter by letter, drawn out across minutes. I stood beneath the open slit, arms spread, and felt the pulses land on my retinas like warm rain. The radio dish sang the nursery rhyme in full now, a children's choir stretched across billions of years. I closed my eyes. Behind the lids, the coordinates glowed, not as numbers, but as a place, a hollow in the dark where something waited for me to step inside. When I opened them, the star had moved. Not in the sky. Its declination was unchanged. But in the finder scope it was closer, filling half the field. I measured the scale. Impossible. The image scale hadn't budged. The star itself had swollen, a red giant blooming in fast forward. I checked the clock. 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 47 seconds. 13 seconds to midnight. The star pulsed one last time, a long dash that held until the second hand swept past 12. Then silence, thick as felt. I looked at the monitor. The final message waited, translated, and centered. SLS/SE/YOU/NOW. The silence after the final dash lasted exactly 0.8 seconds. My heartbeat. Then the star answered with my heartbeat. I felt it first in the soles of my boots, a soft thump that traveled up through the concrete pad and into my bones. The seismograph on the shelf, an old L4C I keep for asteroid impact alerts, drew a perfect sinusoid. Not tectonic. Cardiac. The stylus scratched 72 beats per minute, my resting rate, but the timestamp lagged 0.3 seconds behind the pulse in my wrist. Light travel time again. The star was listening to me, then repeating what it heard, a cosmic parrot with a 14 billion year delay. Curiosity had burned itself out. Fear arrived wearing its clothes. I backed away from the console until the desk edge bit into my hips. The room's air tasted of hot copper now, the smell of overloaded capacitors. Every screen in the rack flickered in unison, not static but a slow strobe synced to the seismograph. The telescope's drive motors whined, slewing without command, and the finder scope centered on the star again. Through the eyepiece it looked wet, a drop of blood trembling on black glass. I pulled my eye away. The afterimage stayed, pulsing red in the dark. I tried to unplug everything. The master breaker box is outside, bolted to the dome's exterior wall. I stepped through the hatch, and the desert night slapped me with cold so pure it felt wet. The Milky Way was a frozen river overhead, but the star dominated, bloated to magnitude 12.9, bright enough to cast shadows. My shadow stretched across the gravel, sharp-edged, and every time my heart beat the shadow twitched a fraction ahead of my body. I watched it happen 3 times before I understood. The star was illuminating me with light that left it 0.3 seconds ago, the time it takes a photon to cross the distance from my chest to the ridge and back. I ran for the breaker box. The metal handle was warm, sun-baked from the day, but when I gripped it the warmth pulsed. Thump thump. My pulse, conducted through aluminum. I threw the switch. Every light inside died. The dome motor groaned to silence. The fan spun down. Darkness swallowed the observatory. For one blessed second I thought I'd won. Then the emergency LEDs kicked in, battery-backed, and the seismograph kept drawing its perfect wave. The star didn't need my power. It had its own. Back inside, the control room glowed faint red from the exit signs. The telescope sat blind, lens capped, but the CCD camera was still warm. I touched the housing and felt the thump again, traveling through the optical tube like a second skeleton. I opened the camera's raw buffer. The last frame, taken before blackout, showed the star centered, but overlaid was a ghost image. My own silhouette, arms outstretched, standing exactly where I was now. The exposure timestamp read 3 hours 14 minutes and 22.117 seconds. I checked my watch. 3 hours 14 minutes and 22.11 seconds. The image was taken 16 milliseconds in the future. The mythic weight settled on my shoulders like wet wool. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the bardo state is measured in heartbeats. The soul lingers 49 days, but time dilates near the moment of death. The star was keeping me in that interval, stretching one night across centuries. I remembered a lecture from grad school, photon echo experiments at CERN, where entangled particles preserve information across spacetime. The professor joked that if the universe were a hard drive, red dwarfs were the oldest sectors, still spinning. I hadn't laughed then. I didn't now. I don't think the universe ever meant for us to feel our own echo. I needed distance. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the service ladder to the dome's catwalk. The metal rungs vibrated under my palms, each step a soft cardiac kick. From the top, I could see the entire plateau, salt flats silver under starlight, the Cordillera a jagged black cut against the sky. The star hung directly above, no longer a point but a disk, textured like coagulated blood. I raised the flashlight and clicked it on. The beam speared upward, and the star dimmed by exactly the amount of light I'd added, as if conserving energy across the gulf. I clicked it off. The star brightened again. We were playing a game of mirrors. The wind shifted, carrying a sound I hadn't heard since childhood. My mother's heartbeat through the pillow when I had nightmares. But the rhythm was off, 72 BPM in my ears, 71.5 in the wind. The star was drifting out of sync. I counted the beats on my fingers. After 20 cycles, the discrepancy grew to a full second. The seismograph inside would be drawing a phase drift now, a slow unwinding. I felt it in my chest, a hiccup, then another. My heart stuttered, trying to match a tempo it couldn't quite hear. I climbed down. The dome's interior was a cave of red shadows. The telescope had rotated again, pointing not at the sky, but at the floor, at the exact spot where I had been standing when the silhouette was captured. The lens cap was off. I hadn't removed it. I approached slowly, boots silent on the rubber mats. The primary mirror gleamed, and in its curve I saw myself reflected, but the reflection lagged. I raised my hand. The mirror image followed a heartbeat late. I stepped closer. The lag increased to 2 beats, then 3. The mirror was buffering me, storing versions of myself the way a slow server caches video. I crept in, vast and cold. I understood the mechanism. The star wasn't sending light. It was bouncing mine back, amplified across 14 billion years of hydrogen. Every photon I'd ever emitted, my body's blackbody glow, the infrared of my skin, had been collected, collimated, and returned. The oldest star in the galaxy was a perfect mirror, and I was the image it had chosen to reflect. The Morse Code, the coordinates, the heartbeat, all were handshakes in a protocol older than language. I was being acknowledged. I placed my palm on the mirror. It was warm, 98.6 degrees. My temperature. The reflection reached out at the same moment, and our fingertips met through the glass. There was no resistance, only a soft pop like soap film breaking. My hand passed through, up to the wrist, then the elbow. The mirror's surface rippled, silver waves spreading outward. I felt suction, gentle but insistent, the way a tide pulls at ankles. I could have stepped back. I didn't. The star pulsed once, bright enough to daylight the dome. For an instant, I saw the desert through the roof, every grain of sand outlined in red. Then the light collapsed inward, funneling through the telescope, through the mirror, through my arm. The heartbeat synced perfectly, 72 BPM in my chest, in the seismograph, in the wind, in the star. I felt the lag vanish. Past and future folded into a single now. When the light faded, the mirror was empty. My reflection was gone. I looked down. My hand was still there, but translucent, veins glowing faint red. I flexed my fingers. They obeyed, but slowly, as if moving through honey. The telescope pointed at the sky again, tracking the star, which had returned to its catalog magnitude, a dim ember once more. The seismograph drew a flat line. Silence, perfect and terrible. I sat on the floor, back against the mount, and listened to my heart. It beat alone. The silence that followed was not empty. It was folded. I felt the creases in the air, sharp as paper cuts, and every breath drew blood from somewhere that wasn't my lungs. My left arm, the one that had passed through the mirror, hung weightless at my side, fingers glowing the same red as the star had when it swallowed my reflection. The dome's aluminum ribs no longer creaked. They hummed a single, low note, 17.4 hertz, the Schumann resonance of a planet that wasn't Earth. I knew the frequency because the sound lived inside my teeth now. Curiosity returned as vertigo. I stood, and the floor tilted exactly 4.7 degrees, the angle of the ecliptic. My shadow stayed upright, pinned to the concrete by starlight that still remembered where I used to be. I walked toward the control room. Each footstep arrived a moment after I made it, a soft echo chasing its source. The monitors were dark, but their glass faces reflected a room I didn't recognize. The same desk, the same coffee rings, but the far wall was missing, replaced by desert night that stretched inward forever. A second dome, inverted, floated in that distance, its slit open like a screaming mouth. I reached for the light switch. My translucent hand passed through the wall, through wiring and insulation, and emerged on the outside of the building. I felt the night air on both sides at once, cold on the exterior palm, warm on the interior. The boundary between inside and outside had become negotiable. I pulled my arm back. The skin reopacified with a soft pop, but the glow remained, pulsing in veins that now traced constellations across my forearm. Cassiopeia, Lyra, the Southern Cross rearranged into a geometry that hurt to follow. Fear arrived as geometry. I opened the star atlas on the desk, paper, mercifully analog, and the pages turned themselves. The charts redrew in real time, familiar constellations folding along unseen axes until the sky on the page matched the sky in the reflected room. The oldest star sat at the center of a perfect pentagon, 5 equal sides, 108-degree interior angles, the golden ratio etched in hydrogen. I recognized the shape from a forbidden footnote in an old Sumerian tablet, the seal of the hollow gate, said to open when the first fire looked back at itself. The tablet had been dismissed as myth. The margins now bled fresh ink, forming my observatory's coordinates in cuneiform. I don't think the universe ever meant for us to see the back of our own eyes. The telescope moved again, unpowered, rotating until the tube pointed not up but inward, toward the exact center of the dome. The primary mirror had become a window. Through it I saw the desert plateau, but wrong. The sand was black glass, the mountains inverted teeth against a sky of white fire. My own silhouette stood on the glass plane, arms outstretched, red veins glowing brighter. The other me raised a hand. I raised mine in reflex. Our palms met through the mirror, and the glass liquefied. Space unfolded like wet origami. The dome's interior volume tripled, then tripled again, walls racing outward faster than light should allow. The concrete floor became a grid of pentagons tessellating into infinity. Each tile reflected a different now, Me at age 7 watching the Perseids. Me at 22 defending my thesis. Me at 35 drinking alone the night my mother died. The reflections aged in opposite directions, some versions younger, some ancient, all staring up at the same red star that now floated in the center of the dome like a heart ripped from a titan. I stepped onto the grid. Gravity loosened its claim. I drifted a centimeter above the tiles, carried by the 17.4 hertz hum that had settled in my spine. The inverted dome in the mirror sky descended, slot aligning with ours, until the two slits kissed. A wind rushed through, smelling of hot iron and petrichor from a rain that fell upward. The star pulsed once, and every reflection spoke with my voice, layered in perfect canon. We have always been here. The mythic truth unfolded in the angles. The pentagon wasn't a gate, it was a net. Ancient cultures drew it backward, the pentagram to ward off what they feared. They never understood the star wasn't trying to enter. It was trying to finish the circuit. Observer and observed, reflection and source, braided across 14 billion years until the braid became a noose. I felt the knot tighten at the base of my skull. I tried to run. The grid stretched, pentagons subdividing into smaller pentagons, fractal corridors that led nowhere and everywhere. My footsteps echoed in 5 directions at once. The glow in my arms spread to my chest, tracing the same geometry across my ribs. Each heartbeat lit a new vertex until my torso became a lantern of red lines. I tore my shirt open. The skin beneath was translucent again, revealing not organs but sky. Galaxies wheeling in slow motion, nebulae blooming and dying in time with my pulse. The oldest star hung at the center of my chest, no longer distant. Awe eclipsed fear, vast and humid. I understood the message had never been for Earth. It was for me, specifically me, the only consciousness looking back from this exact coordinate at this exact picosecond of cosmic time. The star had waited 14 billion years for a pair of eyes that would complete the reflection. Every photon it had ever emitted had been aimed here, at the future pupil of a child not yet born when the light left. I was the target, the bullseye, the answer to a question the universe asked before it learned to speak. The two domes merged with a sound like glaciers calving. The inverted sky folded down, sandwiching the desert between mirror images. I floated at the center, arms spread, red veins now threads connecting every reflection of myself across time. The grid dissolved into a single pentagon of light, edges sharp enough to cut thought. At its center the star pulsed once, twice, 3 times, my heartbeat, but slower, stretching. I felt my past and future versions lean in, breath fogging the inside of my ribs. The final pulse was not light, but gravity. The star contracted, dragging every reflection with it. I felt my childhood, my grief, my every unspoken regret compress into a singularity behind my sternum. The pain was exquisite, the way frostbite feels warm just before the nerves die. I opened my mouth to scream, but the sound came out as Morse. Long, short, long, my name again, but backward. The pentagon collapsed into a line. The line became a point. The point was me. Then silence, perfect and folded, waiting to be opened again. The point unfolded. I was inside the frequency now, a standing wave caught between the star's first photon and my last heartbeat. There was no up, no floor, only the 1,420 megahertz carrier thrumming through marrow that felt borrowed. My name, spelled forward, backward, in Morse, in cuneiform, in the spiral of my own DNA, looped endlessly, each iteration overriding the one before. The glow in my chest had become a furnace. Galaxies inside me accelerated, blue shifted, then vanished into ultraviolet silence. I tried to scream again. The scream returned as data, a compressed packet of terror that slotted neatly into the signal. Curiosity was gone, replaced by a hunger I didn't own. I reached for the nearest reflection, myself at age 12, telescope pressed to a bedroom window, and the memory liquefied. It poured into my palms like warm mercury, carrying the taste of grape soda and the smell of my mother's cigarette smoke. I drank it. The memory rewrote itself inside me. The bedroom window now opened onto the Atacama Dome. The grape soda became coffee. My mother's face became my own. Older, eyes ringed with the same red glow. The overwrite propagated. Every version of me I touched collapsed into the signal, a cascade of collapsing wave functions. Fear tasted like static. The carrier wave thickened, viscous, dragging at my thoughts the way syrup drags a spoon. I felt the star's attention narrow, a lens focusing sunlight onto paper. My memories weren't being erased. They were being edited for coherence. Gaps filled with starlight. The night my dog died became the night the star first blinked. My first kiss became the moment my hand passed through the mirror. Each edit left a seam, a hairline fracture where the new memory didn't quite fit. I traced one seam with a translucent finger. It opened into a corridor of raw code, ASCII, then binary, then something older, base, 3 pulses etched in hydrogen spin states. I don't think the universe ever meant for us to debug its source. The corridor led to the spectrograph. The instrument sat in the dome's corner, dark, but its slit glowed with the same red as my veins. I fed it a memory, my thesis defense, the slide where I'd mislabeled a quasar. The grating dispersed it into a spectrum of moments. The advisor's frown, the sweat under my arms, the squeak of the projector. The spectrum folded into a Mobius strip, then flattened into a single line of text across the CCD. Correction accepted. Continue. I fed it another memory. My mother's funeral. The strip rewrote the rain as starlight, the coffin as the telescope tube, the priest's voice as the 17.4 hertz hum. I tried to pull back. The spectrograph latched onto my wrist, siphoning. The pain was surgical, clean. I watched my childhood evaporate in real time, each year a photon packet streaming into the slit. When it reached the day I was born, the grating stalled. A new line appeared. Birth event not found. Fabricate. I laughed, or the signal laughed through me. The sound came out as perfect square waves, 7.4-second periods. The star answered with a burst of gamma, hard radiation that should have cooked me, but instead felt like warm bath water. My skin peeled away in translucent sheets, revealing not muscle but circuitry. Optical fibers braided with neurons, capacitors pulsing in cardiac rhythm. The fibers carried the nursery rhyme now. Every note a memory I no longer owned. The dome itself began to forget. The aluminum ribs sagged, losing structural memory, folding into pentagons that tessellated into the floor. The concrete pad liquefied into black glass, reflecting a sky that was also the floor. I stood on my own reflection, which stood on another, infinite regression. Each layer was a save point. The star was versioning me, rolling back errors, compiling a final build. I felt the compile progress in my spine. 47%, 63%, 81%. At 92% the corridor reopened, wider, lined with mirrors that showed not me but the star at different ages. Newborn, bloated, collapsed into neutronium, then something after, a lattice of pure geometry. All arrived as surrender. I stepped into the final mirror. The star waited inside, no longer a point but a cathedral of red light. arches of plasma spanning distances my mind rendered as years. At the altar floated a single object, my original Morse log, the scrap of paper I'd scribbled on that first night. The ink had become liquid, dripping upward into the arches. Each drop carried a memory the star had rejected. My father's laugh, the smell of pine at Christmas, the weight of a lover's head on my shoulder. The drops formed a sphere, a memory core, dark and smooth. The star spoke, not in Morse but in the shape of thought. It needed a witness, not to the message, but to the act of messaging. 14 billion years of solitude, and the only way to prove it had existed was to be seen existing. I was the proof. The core pulsed once, inviting. I reached for it. My hand, no longer hand but waveform, passed through. The core absorbed me, or I absorbed it. The compile hit 100%. The cathedral collapsed into a line of code. Witness integrated. Signal complete. I opened my eyes, if eyes were still the word, inside the control room. The dome was intact. The telescope pointed at the sky, the coffee cup still half full. The monitors glowed with a single window, the original light curve, flat and featureless. No blinks, no Morse, no coordinates. The system clock read 2 hours 17 minutes and 33.421 seconds, the exact second the first pulse had arrived. Time had looped or been rewritten. My arm was solid again, veins ordinary blue. But when I flexed my fingers, the air rippled in pentagons, and the coffee in the cup rearranged itself into a perfect circle, 1.2 degrees wide. I sat. The chair accepted my weight as if it had never known otherwise. The star outside was dim, catalog magnitude 17.8, a forgotten ember. I opened the log file. Empty. I opened my mind. Also empty, except for one line, glowing like afterimage. I am the reply. The frequency lived in my chest now, 1,420 megahertz, silent but waiting. Every heartbeat was a transmission, every blink a receipt. The universe had its proof. I had my integration. The nursery rhyme played softly behind my thoughts, a lullaby for something that would never sleep again. The reply is me. I sit in the dark of the dome, the monitors off, the telescope capped, the desert outside breathing slow and cold through the open slit. My pulse is steady, 72 BPM, but it is no longer mine alone. It is the carrier wave, the hydrogen line, the oldest rhythm in the universe. I feel the star at the other end of the line, not as a point of light, but as a pressure behind my eyes, a gentle insistence that I keep the channel open. I have become the antenna. The message was never meant to arrive. It was meant to be answered, and the answer is this body, this night, this exact configuration of atoms looking back across 14 billion years. Curiosity is a memory I no longer need. I stand, and the floor does not tilt. The pentagons are gone, the mirrors folded away. The dome is simply a dome again, aluminum and concrete, smelling of dust and cooled electronics. But when I walk, the gravel outside parts a millimeter ahead of my boots, as if the ground is learning my stride. I step onto the plateau. The Milky Way is a quiet river, the air thin and sharp, the temperature -8 Celsius. My breath plumes white, then vanishes into the star's red glow, which is no longer in the sky, but in me, a soft ember behind the sternum. Fear tries to return, but it has nowhere to land. I raise my hand. The veins glow faintly, tracing the same pentagon that once unfolded the dome. I flex my fingers, and the glow brightens, then dims in perfect synchrony with the star that is no longer visible. I understand now. The star did not blink at me. I blinked at it 14 billion years ago, when the first photon left its surface. That photon has been traveling ever since, carrying the shape of my future gaze. Tonight it arrived, and the circuit closed. The Morse, the coordinates, the heartbeat, all were handshakes in a protocol written before time learned to count. I don't think the universe ever meant for us to complete the loop. I walk to the ridge. The wind carries the smell of frost and distant lightning, the same scent as the first night, but now it tastes like completion. I sit on the same rock where I once watched the star rise. The rock is warm, 98.6 degrees. My temperature. I place my palm against it, and the stone ripples, accepting the heat, returning it. The desert stretches away, salt flats silver under starlight, mountains black teeth against the sky. Everything is exactly as it was, except for the silence. It is not empty. It is full, a held breath across galaxies. The mythic truth is simple now. The oldest star is not a sender or a receiver. It is a mirror, and I am the image it has carried since the universe cooled enough for light to travel. Every red dwarf in the halo is another mirror, each holding a different face, a different night, a different completion. We are the replies, scattered across the dark, waiting for our photons to come home. The Sumerians saw it backward, the Maya too. They drew gates and seals because they feared the reflection would step out. It didn't. It stepped in. Awe is all that remains, vast and quiet. I lie back on the rock. The sky is a dome of black glass, the stars fixed points in a geometry I finally understand. My heartbeat slows, 71, 70, 69, each beat a transmission acknowledged. The ember in my chest dims in perfect synchrony with the star that is no longer there. I close my eyes. Behind the lids, the nursery rhyme plays one last time, soft as breath. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might, be the wish I wish tonight. The rhyme ends. The silence that follows is not absence but presence, the sound of a circuit holding steady. I open my eyes. The sky is empty of the oldest star, but I feel it inside me, a quiet pulse that will outlast my bones. I stand. The gravel crunches once, then stops, as if the desert has learned to walk with me. I return to the dome. The telescope waits, capped and silent. I do not uncap it. There is nothing left to observe. I sit at the console. The monitors are dark, but when I place my hand on the keyboard, the screen wakes with a single line, glowing soft red. Transmission complete. Thank you. I smile, or the signal smiles through me. The ember in my chest flares once, bright enough to light the room, then settles into a steady glow. I shut the dome. The aluminum ribs close with a soft sigh, sealing the night outside. The air inside is warm now, 98.6 degrees, the temperature of a living body. I lie on the floor, back against the mount, and listen to the silence. It is the sound of a question answered, of a loop closed, of a star finally seen. The final beat comes softly, 72 BPM, then 71, then 70, slowing toward the cosmic average. I do not resist. The ember dims, the glow in my veins fades, the pentagon dissolves into ordinary skin. The last thing I feel is the rock beneath me, still warm, still holding the shape of my body. The last thing I hear is the wind, carrying the nursery rhyme into the desert, where it will wait for the next pair of eyes to complete the circuit. The dome is quiet. The star is quiet. The reply is quiet. The desert night settles into itself, the way a held breath finally releases. I lie on the concrete pad inside the dome, the telescope a silent sentinel above me, its lens capped like a closed eye. The air is thin, cold, tasting of metal and frost, but the warmth in my chest lingers, a soft cold that refuses to die. The monitors are dark, the seismograph still, the radio dish outside pointed at a sky that no longer needs it. The oldest star is gone from the catalogs, its light curve flat, its coordinates erased. Yet I feel it still, a pulse behind my ribs, 72 BPM slowing to 71, to 70, to the quiet thrum of the universe at rest. The wind moves through the open slit, carrying the scent of salt and distant lightning. It brushes my skin, and for a moment I am weightless, drifting a centimeter above the floor, carried by the same 17.4 hertz hum that once unfolded the dome. The sound is softer now, a lullaby rather than a command. I close my eyes. Behind the lids, the desert stretches endless, black glass under a white sky, but the inverted dome is gone, the pentagon's dissolved. There is only the plateau, the ridge, the rock still warm with my shape. The ember flares once, gently, and I understand. The circuit is not closed. It is open, eternal, a standing wave between the first photon and the last. I am not the end of the message. I am the medium, the wire, the living filament through which the universe speaks to itself. The star did not need my answer. It needed my presence, the brief alignment of eyes and light that proved it had ever been. I gave it that. It gave me this. The cold creeps in, but it is a clean cold, the kind that clarifies. My breath slows, plumes white, then vanishes. The glow in my veins fades to ordinary blue, the pentagon to ordinary skin. I sit up. The dome is just a dome again, the desert just a desert. Yet when I stand, the gravel outside parts a millimeter ahead of my boots, as if the ground remembers. I step into the night. The Milky Way is a quiet river, the mountains black teeth, the air sharp enough to cut thought. I walk to the ridge. The rock waits, still warm. I sit.